In this episode, episode 94 of the Encourage and Inspire podcast, I'm joined by Adaora Nnmani. She's a dynamic figure in the African entertainment industry as an artist manager and radio personality. Adaora shares her unique insights and experiences in navigating the world of music management. In this episode, she discusses the challenges artists face in gaining visibility and the importance of continuous development to build sustainable careers. With a focus on cultural nuances, Adaora offers valuable advice for emerging artists on how to succeed in today's fast-paced music landscape. Join us for this engaging conversation, packed with inspiration and practical tips for anyone interested in the music industry. Adora's passion for artist development shines through, making this a must listen for aspiring talent and industry professionals alike. Also, the audio on this episode is a little bit grainy because she is in Africa and she was having some audio problems. But this is still a great episode. Hope you guys enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Encourage and Inspire podcast. And I have a very special guest. This is episode number 94. And I have a very special guest with me. She's an artist manager, the radio personality. You know, she does a lot of different things in the industry in Africa. And my new friend that I met, Nigeria. Okay, Nigeria. Yeah. Adaora Nnmani. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm doing so good. How about you?
That's good. I'm doing good. And guys, please excuse the audio. I know we're having a little technical difficulties, but we're not going to let that stop us. You know, so we're going to make it work.
Yeah.
we're gonna make it work. Yeah, so we got connected very recently on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Last year.
Yeah.
I think it was last year.
I think it was last year.
Connected last year.
Yeah. And I just started seeing your content. And I think I had posted something about me being part of a management network, and I think that's what got you interested in.
Yeah, I saw your post. It's one of your posts.
Right.
That is the one I would like to connect. And,
definitely.
You know, as I say, always make the connection. You never can tell.
Exactly. And so,
yeah. And I just said being very consistent with my LinkedIn, like last year. Over the years, so carried away with work. You know, I didn't pay attention to my personal brand. And it was like, oh, my artist first.
Right.
But you know, in the last few months, I've been very serious about my personal branding. I think it has paid off, you know, because I've got very rich connections. Even artists are beginning to reach out to me, like personally. I don't have to chase them anymore, as was the case some years ago. It's interesting.
No, that's very, very good. If you got to chase them. Yeah, because artist management is a thankless job.
Absolutely, it is.
You know, because no matter what. Go ahead.
I would describe it as as a mother taking care of a child, and usually thankless.
Absolutely. You know, yeah. So I would like to how did you get started? Definitely. So how did you get started? Like, how did you get started in the music industry? What made you want to get involved in the music industry?
Okay, so I grew up in the music environment.
Okay.
Back in 2006, I had a lot of adults like in my house, uncles, aunties, name it. Like they were all listening to trending songs at the time. And as early as 2005, 2006, we had the likes of Two Face, P Square. I don't know if you know them.
No.
Okay, so they're like our African, Nigerian artists. They were very big at the time.
Right.
So their songs were like the one thing I was always hearing every day on my way to school. When I come back home, it's G Square, Two Face, and there's also that guy Faith, but I don't know. I think it's no longer seen. So I did listen to the songs like every day, and I was intrigued because how can this guy just become popular just by doing music, you know? And at that young age, my love for music was superb. And then I would listen to old classics, and then I would have my friends like ask me why I listen to Asian songs. So it all started with a love for music as a child, and then going on to when I was 19, I first had my first client, which was a
Okay.
gospel artist,
Okay.
and I worked as her tour manager and personal manager, but nothing business. I just had to deal with her because there's a lot of tours. She did go on a lot of tours, lots of performances. So I was always there to make sure that everything was going as planned. And that was how I got my foot into the industry in 2019. And even though our relationship didn't last for so long because we did work for I think 2 years, and then
Yeah.
she got married, and that was the end of that, and all of us had to move. Like then, I
Right.
moved to another city in Nigeria, which was where my career actually started.
Oh, very, very, very cool. Yeah, man. I've been doing this myself since around the same time, since like 2005, 2006, working with talent. And I knew, like, I started in the industry as in a dance group, and
Okay.
I knew that I wasn't going to be a dancer for long. But I knew I wanted to learn the industry, learn the business. So I was fortunate enough to meet my mentor, Nassan. Uh, took me under his wing and taught me the industry, and I've been going ever since.
Yeah. And there's one thing about this industry. If you're going to grow like really fast and learn everything, you need mentorship. Like myself,
Sure.
like I have very strong mentor who's been guiding me and leading me by the hand. And that's why, I don't behave like I'm a young person anymore
Right, right, right.
because of the kind of mentorship that I get, the kind of things that I know about the industry. It makes me look like so the baby.
Right, right. No, I mean, I think collectively, because you're in Nigeria, it works a little bit different, I'm sure, than it works here in America. See, I have a lot of
Yes.
Nigerian artists, people from Africa, one region, but the reason why it's hard for me to work with them is because the currency rate is different. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, so
But
I can't.
it doesn't make anything because over here a lot of us use the dollar for transactions, like my company, people pay in dollars. Generally, the PayPal thing, you can get
Yeah,
transfer money across, the globe. So it's not really a problem anymore.
They use the US. People can pay with the US dollar.
Absolutely. Yes. We have dollar accounts here. People have dollar accounts where
Okay.
people can transfer dollars there and whatever currency. So that shouldn't be a problem.
But what I mean by that is no. But what I mean by that is like the amount. For instance, like if like ₦1,000,000, right, is like
Okay. Yeah.
what is that like? What is
A
that?
millionaire is like $1,000.
$1,000, right? So how many artists have that to play with?
Or less.
Yeah, that's probably less, right? But let's see. Honestly, the thing.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
So you're looking for the high end client.
Not even so much, right? Because
you can find them. These artists are willing to do anything.
yeah, yeah. And usually the artists that come to me that find me don't have that type of money. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause they might see me on the internet,
Okay.
they might see me,
Wow.
and they don't necessarily like, if I tell them what my rate is, like, let's say it's $300 USD.
Have the money. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I most of them don't have that, but it's all good. It's all good. There's no worries.
Wow. Yeah.
But
I get that. I
yeah,
get it.
Yeah, so that's why it's hard for me to work with a lot of. I work with a lot of international clients in Europe and places
Yeah,
like that because they work with the euro, and the euro is a lot easier to
yeah.
what I'm saying, to work
So
with.
one of the things that caused that is our economy is really bad right now. Like the
Yeah,
Nigerian economy is really bad, and
just like the
that's
American
why it looks
the
like
American
people can afford basic things.
well hell the music economy the American economy is the same way right now. The American economy is the same way. That's
Yeah,
why
but
every
yeah,
go ahead.
but the difference is, being in the music business is not affected by the economy,
Okay,
because it's global. So
right,
it's not really affected by the Nigerian economy, because if that were the case, people wouldn't be having concerts in Nigeria. There won't be, shows in Nigeria that sell out.
right,
But,
right,
people love entertainment. They would do anything to be entertained. So
for sure.
uh, that's pretty much about it. Anyway,
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about so you were head of operations at A&R at Maze Media. So tell me about that. Uh, your role with that.
I didn't get you. What did
Yeah,
you say?
I said
Question again.
for when you work at Maze Media, are you still at Maze Media? Or you work?
Okay. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So
yes.
tell me about what you do there. Is that more?
Okay,
Is that the
so
record? Is that the record label side?
it's a music management company,
Uh,
and we also offer label services.
okay.
And I happen to head operations, and I'm the head of A&R. So basically, what we do is the whole things here, and for to manage catalogs of small clients. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So, the publishing thing in Africa is not very well known. So
Okay.
we want to make a statement with the publishing side of things, here in Africa.
Okay.
So we also have a publishing arm, the
Okay.
music management arm. We offer promotion services, and just about the basic music services that our emerging artists will need. Not just emerging artists, we also cater to the established artists. But right now, we're focusing on emerging artists.
Okay. 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 I like that. I like that. I like that you um have different roles that you're playing in the because you have
Yeah.
in this game you have to wear a lot of different hats. At times.
Absolutely. You wear a lot of hats. Absolutely.
you know.
Like myself, sometimes my role as a head of operations, keeps me on my toes. I have to be with the artists. I have to be with, their specific managers. I'm interfacing with literally everybody to make sure that the day-to-day of running of the company is, par, because it's not easy being a music executive, being an artist manager, being a social media person, being a creative. It is
It's a
one hell of a job, honestly. I must tell you,
it's a lot, and you have to still balance your personal
it's a
life and
lot.
yeah, it's
And then
definitely
sometimes I'm also a producer, because I have to work with the producers to
okay,
make sure that our projects are top notch. Like I
right?
just finished a collaboration with a South African, a
Okay,
remix for one of the songs that we're working on, and God, it was out of this world. I kept making corrections and corrections until they finally nailed it. So this job is not for the weak.
definitely not.
It's not for the weak.
It's definitely not.
Yeah.
It's a lot. You have to, people always say, "Oh, you the music industry, go get a real job." They don't understand like what goes into the being in the music
Absolutely.
industry because most people, music is like I said, it's entertainment. They don't look at it as a
As a
career
business.
or as a business
Yeah.
or how we view it as pros. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I totally understand where you're coming from with that.
Being a professional in the music business opens doors for you, like very wide doors. You
Right.
can become the MD or any company you can never imagine. just by being in the music industry, being an executive in the music industry. So any day, anytime, I would always choose being a music executive. No matter
No,
what happens,
definitely.
I
I
would
mean,
always choose.
right. And if you have a certain skill set that people need, and from watching you and the way you view the music industry, you have a very analytical mind. And
Yes,
because every manager has different skill sets, right? Some managers
yes, yes,
are good with budgets and money. Some managers are good with relationships.
yes.
Some managers are good with knowing how to go get brand
Creative,
deals. Yeah, everybody,
emotions.
right? Everybody's not every manager is not one size fits all, right?
Yeah, but it's
You
also good to know a bit about everything because
yeah,
your job entails that interface with all of these parts. So it's also very important that as a manager, you know financing, you know the law, you know marketing,
yeah,
you understand every facet of the industry.
right, right. And ultimately, it's about having a strong network, and what you don't know, you
Yes,
go find. You know what I'm
exactly,
saying?
absolutely.
And
Well,
yeah, I don't see. Can I? What I'm gonna tell artists is that when you first starting out, you don't necessarily want to go out and get the most established manager who
yeah.
needs to make money off of you, right? Because that's usually not going to be the case right away. So I would tell
Yeah.
somebody, go out and find somebody who you trust, who may not necessarily know the music business, but they are willing to fight for you. That's a much better deal to try to go find somebody,
Well,
you know.
you need, for example, like what we're facing in Nigeria right now. We're in an era that I call the era of accidental managers. Now, we have a lot of artists in Nigeria who are A-list artists,
Yeah.
but if you look at their numbers, from an analytical point,
Uh huh.
business point, they're not really making as much as they should. And that's
Got
because
you.
they do
Got you.
not have proper business manager. So I wouldn't advise any artist
Well,
to
let me.
work with someone who doesn't understand the business.
Well,
It's very important
here's
that
but here's what I'll
first
say.
manager
Right. But here's what I'll
understands
say.
the
Right.
business. That's very important. This business is like a game of numbers, it's
For sure.
politics. And if you don't understand it, your artist will suffer. And you'll suffer also with them
For sure.
because
But for sure.
you're waiting for them to gain money and all of that.
Right. But here's what I will say. Right. Because being a business manager, you know,
Okay.
versus being a talent manager. I just had this conversation earlier.
Okay.
It's two different things,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're a business manager, that's more of making sure people's bills are paid, making sure they're making the right investments into themselves. You know,
Yeah.
they have their company set up properly. That's the business manager. The talent manager is the one that focuses on their artist career. So you can have a talent manager and you can have a business manager. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So
Okay.
but yeah, but we why I make that point is because I would rather somebody have somebody who they trust, because
Okay. Let's just
going to hire somebody off the street who you don't know and
now.
haven't built that relationship with, and
Okay.
again, I can't speak for over there because one thing I understand about when you work globally is culture, right? So culture is what separates it. So I tell artists all the time, like when you go overseas, culturally you got to be aware, because what works over in America might not work in Africa, and vice versa, right? So I think
Yes,
so that's why I
absolutely.
said
Yeah.
that's why I said
Yeah.
over
Different
here.
politics.
For sure. That's why I said over here, when an artist is starting out, I said, go find somebody that you can trust, because you're better off having somebody who can fight for you, and then they can learn along the way, right? But you have somebody where you're not alone. Is what I'm trying to say. Because trying to navigate this thing
Okay, but
alone by yourself
okay.
is very difficult.
But over there, I believe that the politics in the industry is way hotter than it is over here. So I think artists actually need experienced and knowledgeable managers,
Yeah,
irrespective of this, irrespective of if you're a talent manager or a business manager.
right.
That experience and
But
knowledge is very important.
it is like, but at the same time as this, like again, you can learn that. You know what I'm saying? But you can learn that. My thing
Yes,
is,
you can.
oh,
But learning, one thing we learn on the job is you learn at the expense of the artist.
yeah, but that happens sometimes.
You get my point?
Yeah, I get it.
You've been learning at the expense of the artist.
Yeah,
So if the artist was supposed to, break even in 5 years, but because you're learning on the job, they'll be break even in 10 years. So that's the problem with learning on the job. I'm not against learning on the job, but you should be able to know certain things that can cover for your lapses.
I'm not saying to have no. If you have a good business mind, you can do good. Because you can have a good business mind, but not necessarily know the music industry, right? So if you have a good business mind, that can work. Because remember, there's transferable skills, right?
Yes.
So it's like being in the military. I tell people all the time, like if you come from the military and you don't have any music industry experience, but you have managerial experience, all you're doing is transferring the skills over, right? So that's what I'm saying. So that can work, So it just depends on you can come from other industries. If you're a business owner in another industry, but you don't say, oh no, you can learn how to transfer those skills over, and it works. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Because I agree with you.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's really, really important. But no, I love it. You push back at me. That's good though. I like that. No, because we all have different perspectives, right? So that's why these conversations are great, because I'm not always right. We're all not always right. We just have our own perspective. So I love that.
Absolutely.
How do you approach talent management and artist promotion in today's landscape? Like when you're taking on an artist, how do you approach their career versus promotion
Okay, so every artist is different.
Right.
Every artist is different. And first thing that I do when I'm taking on an artist is I need to see the hunger. Like I need to see the hunger in you, and I need to see that you're going to be consistent. Because I'm going to lay down my life for you.
Right.
You know what the job of an artist manager is? More like laying down your life for artists.
Right.
So I need to see that you're hungry enough, for success. And there are two kinds of success in music. The first is hunger the stomach. Now, for a lot of conventional artists, they're usually very hungry, hungry folks. So usually they have this hunger of the stomach. They want to survive first. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's still staticky,
so usually they want to survive first. Okay. So usually they will want to survive first, put food on the table and be able to do basic things. And sometimes you find out that when they become big, when they are broken even, usually there's nothing else to give out again. And that's because the only thing they have is hunger. Now we have the second kind of category of artists, the ones who are ambitious enough that even after they have solved the hunger of the stomach, they can proceed into becoming very ambitious, doing even more and more hits.
Right.
Now these are the two categories of talent, and they approach differently.
I totally agree.
Artists promotion and in terms of marketing, and I think that's like how I'm going to coin that.
Right.
So that's my approach. So usually I want to say that the artist is hungry enough and that you're consistent, because consistency shows off artist managers. You have a lot of juggling with anyway. You can't be consistent enough on one side, then there's no point in motivation the person.
Right.
I
love that. I think that talent management today, because it's very different than it used to be. Because you're having to the old industry of
record labels and trying to go get a record deal for most people are not going to happen. Right. So I think today you got to have to, and that's why I love what you do, because you know, kind of have to have the long tail approach in your overall career that might not include a record deal, right? So it's really about understanding what your overall goals, you know, and how to make that happen, you know, and what that artist is versus what that artist isn't. You know what I'm saying? Every artist is very different. Like, for instance, like if you're not a dancer, you shouldn't be dancing. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's not your skill set, and it's part of our job as managers to save artists from themselves, like, because you know they want to try to do everything, but if that's not what you're good at, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you're gonna fail.
Yeah, you gotta know what you are and know what you aren't. There's an artist named PJ Morton. I don't know if you know who PJ Morton is, but he is a songwriter, singer-songwriter, producer. He whenever you see him, he's always behind the keyboard or the piano. Not dancing. That's not what he does. And he knows what he does and he knows what he doesn't do. And I think that's very, very key in working with talent. Is like part of our job is to tell them, like, I don't think that's the right move for you. But at the end of the day, they can do what the hell they want to do.
You can be everything.
Yeah. But sometimes they're gonna do what they want to do. You know what I'm saying? So, you know.
Our job is to help set them straight, you know, so they don't have to struggle, you know. So like their backbone.
Right.
Their ideas, their CEO.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how would you say that what do you think the top 5 most common mistakes in the Nigerian artist market that you see artists making? Common mistake.
Okay. Number 1 is the kind of music we turn out now. The Nigerian market is, I don't know, I don't even have the right words, but you know, it's not our songs do not have substance anymore.
Okay.
Our songs lack substance. You know, compared to the songs that you know were being played in the early 2000s.
Right.
Listen to them, and you know, they were songs that could stand the test of time. Even in the next 100 years, they would still play the songs that were you know produced in the early 2000s. But right now, the life cycle of any song now is maximum 1 month, 2 months. You know, with the whole TikTok. Once the TikTok virality thing is over, the song is dead.
Yes,
and that's because the songs do not have substance.
No,
the songs are just instant feel goods, but nothing more to it. And that's what's one of the things that's killing our industry. Everybody's looking for a viral hit.
I think
but then they forget that
I think that's worldwide.
After the virality is gone, it's gone.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You know, after the virality and the viral hit, after that it's gone. Like people are waiting for the next viral song. You know, and it's affected. You know, the whole. And I think one of the reasons why this has happened is the people. People want things like that, and we live in a time where there are a lot of mediocre people. Permit me to use that word. A lot of people are mediocre, like in their thinking, in their behavior, and you know that will have invariably affect what the artists give out. You know,
right?
So imagine if you live in an environment where 90% of the people are educated and they are well read. They literally know the law. They know a lot of things, and one artist who just I don't know how to explain it. You know, a mediocre, writes his mediocre song and the song is going viral. Like I don't get it. Who's playing the song? Who's streaming the song?
Right.
You know, so that's one of the problems that you know I'm seeing in the Nigerian music space. And then the second problem is the disregard for experienced artist managers. You know,
Okay.
a lot of people would rather pick one of their family members who knows nothing about the politics in the industry, who knows nothing about budgeting, who knows nothing about finances, who knows nothing about anything, who knows
Right.
nothing about nothing,
Right.
and
Yeah,
they
that's a
become their
problem.
manager.
No, that's a
And
problem.
then when
Yeah.
you as a professional reach out to them, they'll say, I have a manager, don't worry. That thing you're saying, I don't need it. But I have an example where a very big Nigerian A-list artist
Right.
said he doesn't need merchandising. Like he doesn't need it.
No merch.
There is
Nothing. Wow.
no
Okay.
merch.
Okay.
That he doesn't need the merch. That he's good, that other sources of income is good for him, that money he makes from streaming is good enough.
Yeah, he doesn't get it.
And this
Like,
is coming from his supposed manager. His
wow.
so-called manager is the one saying this, that they are good with just streaming, that even if they stop singing, the streaming numbers will keep coming in. So
Wow.
you see the problem we have with the accidental manager, like
I
the
see.
inexperienced manager, the
Right.
lack of knowledge manager. So that's like one other trouble that we have here in Nigeria. It is crumbling the industry.
No, I see. No. That definitely is a problem because if you're just relying on streaming numbers, like you won't, like it's impossible. You talk about fractions of pennies, per stream.
Yes, fractions of penny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And usually because most of them, because of the viral thing, and say they drop the song this week, and in 1 week they have like 10 million. Are you serious? Yes, the numbers are important, very important, because we live in a time where data is king now. Aside from content being king, data is king. If you look at your numbers, you can know how much you can be able to generate. But relying just on streaming numbers as a source of income doesn't make sense.
No,
Doesn't
definitely not. Definitely, you can make way more money going directly to your audience directly than
Absolutely.
right. I totally get that for sure.
Yeah. And then the last problem that I can identify is I think it has to do with the quality of management that we have, of business management. A lot of Nigerian artists would rather spend their earnings on luxury than renting or reinvesting in things that are worth it. We see that happen. I think it's not just Nigeria, not just a Nigerian thing.
Yeah, no, it happens everywhere.
I feel like it's I feel like it's even worse here because even the big guys who should know better, still behave in very and that still comes down to what I talked about earlier about the mediocre society. I think we're in an era where we have a lot of mediocre things happening in the world. Like mediocre people are the ones running things. Maybe my use of language. They are the ones running things in the world. So the only thing you can actually get out of that mediocre event.
I get that. Hold on. No, I totally understand where you're coming from with the common mistakes. A lot of those mistakes, I think, are happening worldwide in any territory, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. Artists, you know what it is too? This is an industry where training is not required for artists to be in the field, right? Other industries, you have to be licensed, right?
But training is necessary.
It is necessary, but what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is though, it's not like if you go into the real estate industry, you have to have a license. That means you were trained, right? That means you understand the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
Those type of things that doesn't necessarily happen for artists.
Yeah.
They're like, I have talent. I should go be a professional artist because I like to sing or rap or whatever it is I do. Like no, there is a certain education that you have to go through. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal education in terms of a degree. Even though my degree is in entertainment business, but you have to have you gotta have some training, you gotta have some training
definitely.
because it is really what sets you up to be successful,
Yeah. And that's why one of the things that we do, as a management company is that we train our talent. Like,
okay.
no matter what level of experience that you have.
So take me through that. What does the training look like?
Okay, so usually there's some bodies or some organizations in Nigeria or in Africa that we usually hold certain kind of trainings. There's this one called, I really can't remember the name top of my head now, but usually it's a gathering where artists come together and they learn the rudiments of music, they learn instruments, instrumentations, how to play instruments. And so try to plug our artists in, go and learn what the business is like, go and learn how to train your voice.
Absolutely.
So these trainings are very important.
Artist development is the one thing I think across any territory you go to in the world is so lost right now because social media gives artists a false sense of I'm ready.
Information, right? Yes. There's too much of information and nobody's making use of it.
Exactly.
I think that's how I like to describe it.
No, and because the truth of the matter is artist development takes a long time.
Yes,
and very few artists are patient enough
ready
to go through the process of it. You know what I'm saying? And we run into that over here in the States all the time. Is that there's artists, for instance, they have great social numbers, right? But they can't perform. Right? You can make great content on your phone, but you can't give me a show.
Speak, you can't communicate.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's a lot.
If you can't perform on the stage, that's where you're gonna make the majority of your money anyway. Is on the stage.
Yes.
Then you're pretty much assed out because we talked about it before. You're not gonna make that much money on streaming, right?
Streaming.
And another thing too, when it comes to streaming, right? Okay, you got a million streams. You have 1 million listeners every month. But people don't forget, like, it's one thing to have a certain amount of streams on a song, but if your listeners are every month consistent, it's very different than having 1 million streams or 2 million streams total.
Yes.
Versus having your monthly listeners, right? Exactly. Which is why I tell artists, let's go direct to your audience. Like, let's sell directly to them. Like that's why I always talk about having a core, because when you know your core and you know what problems you solve for them,
yes,
it makes it way easier than trying to figure out how to go get 1 million people to stream my song every month. But you get those 1,000 people that want to spend $100 a year, every year.
Yes, and that makes more sense.
That makes a lot more sense, right?
More financial sense, when you have, yes,
look,
absolutely.
I get it. Everybody,
your current income is better than
right. And I get it. Look, everybody wants to be the biggest artist in the world. I understand that. That's natural. But most artists won't ever get to that. It's just what it is, right? So,
and if you're going to get to that, you need a lot of money.
Yes.
Behind your marketing and promotion, which is one thing that artists do not understand. They think, like, just record this song, I'll put it out there, and whoa, I have, the whole world listening.
No,
That's not true.
No, you
like,
need
you
money.
Need to put in a lot of money like a whole lot of money. I read very recently, I think about the Grammys,
Okay.
how Beyonce was able to win the Grammys, and the author of the post, or I think that was on news or something, said Jay-Z actually spent I think 2 point something billion dollars to be able
Uh-huh.
to get her to win the Grammy, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh yes, even though it sounds like a charade, but it's very
Yeah,
possible.
I don't know if
To,
I don't know if that I don't know if he paid to win the Grammy, because look, the Grammys are all about, it's a popularity contest, right? Because technically, so how it works in the Grammys, right? You don't have to be a part of the
yes,
recording.
yes.
You don't have.
So we're not saying exactly that he paid for the Grammys. We're saying that he paid money or spent a lot of money behind her project
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
her album to be able
Oh,
to ensure that
Oh yeah.
she gets the
The look.
numbers
Yeah,
for
no, that's
the
true.
Grammys. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's
paid.
very
So,
true. Yeah, that's very true.
so a lot of money went behind that.
Definitely.
It doesn't just happen by magic.
No, look, man.
So that's one thing that artists do not understand.
It costs millions of dollars, especially it costs millions, right? Millions of dollars to break an artist through, right? Millions. And so artists don't understand, like that's what record labels, they lose way more than they win, right?
Yes.
So this is why you're seeing, right, a lot of the major labels are starting to get into the independent industry, right? Because they understand the independent.
Just very recently, Warner Music bought Africorp.
Okay.
Yeah, because they acquired Africorp.
Because they understand there's way more independent artists than there are going to be major label artists, and if we can take a small percentage of an independent
off of the independent label
versus the major,
can cover up for losses.
Exactly. And so record labels are becoming distribution companies now, which never used to be that way. The majors used to have their lane, and the indies had their lane, and now the majors want to come in and take over, right? And so it's changing very, very rapidly, right? So
because you see what the indies are doing. The indies are also very powerful on their own.
Yes.
They're doing quite a lot of numbers. They're trying their best, but it just doesn't end at that. There's more beyond that.
For sure, and that's why for me, like again, when you can be global, when you can be a global artist and travel the world, it's a very different opportunity that presents itself than only trying to be, big in America, or because the American market is so hard to penetrate.
Yes, it's very difficult to penetrate.
And obviously now we're seeing artists come from Africa like Burna Boy and Tim and all these artists that are coming from.
It took them a long time to break in.
Yeah,
they didn't just break in one day.
Yes,
a long time. A lot of hard work.
Exactly.
And they didn't break into America like directly.
Right.
It's very difficult to break into America. You need to have something just beyond your music.
Yes.
That will allow the American culture to accept you, to be inculcated to the American culture. So it's way beyond your music.
I agree.
It's way beyond it.
No, I agree with that. No, that's very true. That is very true.
So that's why a lot of artists will never break in, because they do not understand the strategies of how those things work.
Yeah, and you see a lot of us, like in America, like we're trying to go. A lot of us trying to go. Hey, let's go to somewhere else. That's why I tell artists, like you said earlier, data is king. This data is king, right? That's what you said earlier. So if you look at your data and okay, majority of my audience is in are coming from, let's say, coming from Africa. per se. Okay, then I need to spend my time and money.
Push your promotion to Africa.
Exactly.
Spend your time, money, travel there.
That
You'll
just
be
makes
accepted.
that just makes
That's how it works.
sense. It just makes sense. But
Yeah.
a lot of artists like they want to be big. They want to be bigger. It's like why try to go that route when the numbers show that you're being more received in this market over here? It just make more sense to spend your money in this other market. You know, for instance, I have an artist that I'm working with right now that I'm selling to the Philippines on tour in October, and he's already been getting streams in the Philippines already, in the cities that we're going to be going to, right?
Yeah.
So he's really excited about this opportunity to be global because it's his first opportunity to ever go overseas to do anything. So he's just really thankful that I'm able to bring those relationships to him and allow right, exactly. And so you got to pay attention to the numbers. Like you said earlier, pay attention to the data. What does the data tell you? Because the data allows you to make the decisions that ultimately build success.
Exactly. And also look at the smaller markets. Sometimes we're usually keen to, I want to be big in Europe, but you've forgotten that there's somewhere in Asia that will accept your music, like because maybe your music sounds like something they want, and they'll probably be your highest paying market, which you will still help them to do. You just wasting your money, time, and everybody's energy trying to break into Europe.
Yeah.
So it's always easier to go through the smaller markets, get the acceptance in the smaller markets, and the numbers work so well. You can find yourself in the bigger markets where you want to be. So it's a game of strategy. It's not something you just start to dream extremely big. It's good to dream big, but it should be strategic.
No, for sure. For sure. Yeah, for sure. Because that just makes the most sense because now you're operating in a place of strength. Because you're already going to some place where you're being perceived already. Now, what I tell artists is
that
this.
Can open more doors.
Right.
That can actually open more doors.
Right. And whenever you go into a new market, they may not pay you right away, but you build relationships. Over time. Now,
exactly.
in the Philippines,
you could even open doors for
Now the tour that I'm doing for the artists. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So for the tour that I'm doing, for the tours that I'm doing in the Philippines, it's a fully paid tour for the artists. Right, so they're going to make some money. They're not going to, they're going to make some money, but it's not going to be a whole lot of money. But they're going to be paid something. But they got it.
Something.
Exactly. But they got to pay to set the tour up. So it's an initial investment because what I tell artists is that I have business partners in on the ground who know the culture, right? For instance. You know the culture in Nigeria, so I would have to trust you because you know more than I do. So why would I try? You would be the cheat code, right? Why am I going to try to figure it out when I already have a relationship with somebody that knows it because you know how it works. Like so, So do you know who Tune That Freak is?
Yes.
You know Tune That Freak? Yeah. I work with them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I have a distribution deal with them.
Distribution deal with them.
Yeah, with Tune That Freak. Yeah, with Tune That Freak. Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, they my friends. I distribute music to Tune That Freak. And we put music on Boom Play. Yeah. So so Tune That Freak, they're my friends. So yeah.
Nice. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We're going places in this industry.
No, for
and
sure.
Right now Africa is the hottest place. The growth of the industry. Africa is hot right now.
No,
doing promotion in
I
Africa.
believe it. And look, you and I are we're gonna do some work together because I believe that
Definitely. Really,
I believe that you can help me and we can help each other. You know,
yeah.
yeah. I love your energy. I love your knowledge of the industry. You know, and you know, and your willingness to help people and to tell the truth.
Thank
You know,
you.
you know.
Thank
So,
you.
so before we get
I'm
out of
open to anything.
for sure.
Yeah.
So before we end the episode, where can the people find you on social media? How can they connect to you? All those kind of things.
Okay, so I'm active on LinkedIn, Precious Adora Nnmani.
Okay.
And I don't know if I have to spell that. Or
It's
you
fine.
just put that in the
I'll put in the
description.
notes. Yeah, I'll put in the notes. It's fine.
Okay. And then on Instagram, which is somewhere that I'm also very active, you can find me at Vidora, Vidora dot creator. So that's my Instagram.
Wonderful. Make sure you.
These are like the very places that are very active, but you can also find me on TikTok as well.
Okay.
These
Good.
are like
So send me your handles. I'll make sure to put it in the notes. So. Okay.
Right.
So guys, this has been another episode.
It was really nice having this conversation with you.
I really enjoyed it. You're awesome. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for
we're gonna stay connected for sure. You know, and I appreciate you.
Definitely.
I appreciate you, guys. It's been another episode of the Encourage Inspire podcast, and this is your host Durell. Until next time, I'm out of here. Peace.